And I have to tell you, that's the other thing. These are complex ideas, and the CFP exam is a difficult exam. We try at Danko Education to get it down into those things that we can teach it like a 6-year-old can understand. Like maybe a 6-year-old can't pass the exam, but they can at least understand the concept. And that's why we use stories to sort of get them to realize, all right, here's the things that we're actually trying to do. All right, now I got that story. Now I can apply it. It's not just memorizing concepts, it's applying them.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Blueprint, an FPA NexGen Podcast. If you're looking for an episode where you're going to laugh, cry, take away some nuggets of wisdom, we've got an episode for you with Brett Danko. He needs no introduction, so we're just going to let you dive right in. Take it away.
Hello and welcome back to the Blueprint, an FPA NexGen Podcast. Today we are joined by Brett Danko, who I am very excited about. So I'm going to kick this off with Brett. Brett, can you tell us how you became the Brett Danko with all of the things that you get to be involved with?
So the Brett Danko, if you spoke to my children, they would tell you, what the heck does that mean? So they would laugh at that. No, I've been very blessed. So for me, I've always wanted to educate. So in terms of, trying to do that, I wanted to teach. I wanted to be a financial advisor, have my own RIA, and I worked for other people. And about 25 years ago, I decided to work for myself. And then I just started small, and I just kept working and working and working and working. And all these years later, we've gotten over 20,000 people through the CFP. And I've gotten some dim bulbs through the CFP. Alison, you're not one of them, but I've gotten some people, and I make sure in the classes when they're freaking out and they're saying, there's so much information, so many. I said, how many of you know somebody who isn't that smart or doesn't work that hard and they pass the CFP? And everybody's hand goes, I go, you could do this. So, but it is a difficult test. We really, in all seriousness, we focus on what they need to know. We focus on stories so that they can understand it, whether I'm teaching or one of our other instructors. We want to make sure that it's relatable. And we want to make sure that when they're on the test, they could say, yeah, they told that story. Yeah, that's how it fits in here. Because definitions are one thing, but on the exam, it's not about definitions. It's about how do you apply these concepts, and that's where the stories come in. So I don't know about becoming Brett Danko, but we've been really blessed over the years. We've always spread by word of mouth. And then finally, recently, we've been sending out some emails, but it was always word of mouth. And people would be like, hey, call him. He's a little unorthodox, but he gets the job done. And as of about 7 years ago, I never had another instructor. And then we started 7-8 years ago, had another instructor. So that's great. And now we have 3 or 4 as we've grown throughout all that time.
That's amazing. The growth has been phenomenal. And I know I am a person that spreads the awareness of the Brett Danko Educational Center and the CFP masterclass, so to say. And one piece that always amazes me about you is that you have this wonderful education component of your career. You're also a wonderful financial advisor and owner of your own firm. You also have all these other things that you're involved with. How have you decided throughout your career what is worth pursuing? What is something that is of interest of you to put your precious time towards? And how have you balanced all those various hats throughout this time?
I'll start with the last one first. I have not balanced it well until over the last really 5 to 7 to 10 years. So didn't balance it well early on. For me, I just went 100 miles an hour in every direction. I wanted to lecture. I wanted to have my own RIA. And I also wanted to teach. The CFP was something that I really glommed onto. It was like, this is what I really want to do. So I was excited about that. And then I just worked all the time. I mean, I'm not saying I'm proud of this. I'm not saying it's good or bad. My wife and I made a decision that she was going to raise the kids, and she was going to quit her job. Now understand, she has an undergraduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania, another graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania, another graduate degree from Columbia. So she had a great job, but she said, I'm going to go ahead and I want to be with the kids, and I'm going to help you. And then that way you're going to be able to travel. So I was spending about 250 nights a year on the road. And then when I came home, I would try and be as, I was very, I was very strategic. And when, like, if the kids were up, then I was up with them and I wanted to spend time with them if I wasn't on the road. But if they were in bed, like once they got to bed, I would just work from 8:30, 9 o'clock until 2 in the morning. So I just didn't sleep a lot. So I worked too much. However, my wife got sick, and I don't mean to bring, be a downer here, but it's that we're recording this. This is the this is the second anniversary of my wife passing away. So this isn't meant to be any drama or whatever. I bring that in because for me, she would have wanted me to do what I love to do, which is preaching the CFP gospel and also talking about, becoming a really good financial advisor. She would have wanted me to do this on the anniversary of her passing. Once she got sick, that's when I realized I can't, I have a limited amount of time with my best friend. We met first day of college. We lived next to each other in the dorms in the quad at the University of Pennsylvania. So we were best friends. And so it's one of those things. And up until she passed away, 38 and a half years, we were best friends. So she knew what I loved to do, and we set out and we divided and conquered. And I realized after she got sick, I need to find other instructors. I need to find other people who not only is for the instruction, but also were better at doing the things that I was trying to do, like running the RIA. We brought in somebody, a guy named Ted Durkin, who's phenomenal. So that was 3 years ago. And he he goes, why do you need me? I said, because I don't have the experience of doing it. You've been working with financial advisors in management positions for decades. I really need you to sort of do that. And you're a managing partner, you're an owner, all those things. I'm not going to sit in any judgment. You're going to run it because you've forgotten more about management than I've ever learned. So I think it's realizing what you're good at, what you're not good at. And usually when you're starting out, you have to do everything. And what I realized was I need to take time away to be with my family. We did a bunch of trips. We spent a lot of time together. I did a lot less traveling and lecturing. And I think that for me, that was my wife getting sick was obviously terrible for our family. But one small silver lining to it was it forced me to recalibrate what I wanted out of life. And what I needed more time with the people that I love, because I now had a limited amount of time. And so for me, it was like, you know what? These are things I'm not great at, or I'm okay at it, but there's people who are better. So working with clients, I don't work with clients anymore. What I do is sometimes I'll do planning. So I want to do 5 to 7 to 10 plans a year. And I do that just to keep in the game. But in terms of managing the assets, if it goes that far, managing the assets and doing a lot of the follow through, I have somebody else. We have a number of advisors at our firm. We're about $3 billion under management, about 30 advisors. So I will say, look, you would be perfect to work with this advisor. So I'm still involved, but not on a day-to-day basis. Because in the end, you can't do it all. And too many things could possibly fall through the cracks. And what's imperative is, since we've started this, the tagline has always been what's best for the student, what's best for the client. And those are what we've built the businesses on. And so for me to spread myself too thin and to possibly be doing things that aren't necessarily my strengths, guess what? That's not best for the student. That's not best for the client. So we've really hired other people. We built those areas out, and it's really made all the difference in the world, because the student gets served better and the actual client gets served better on the RIA side. And I am passionate about that. And you say you entailed costs for that. Yeah, and it was well worth it, because then you have even firmer foundation in which to build any type of business. So that took me a little while to learn. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, founders will be like, no, I need to do everything. No, I still worry about everything. Oh, I'm still paranoid. Only the paranoid survive, from Andy Grove. I'm still paranoid about everything. And I'm worried about, how do we get better? How do we serve the client better? How do we make sure that there aren't issues with clients? How do we serve the students better? How do we make sure there aren't issues? So for me, I'm still thinking about that. and challenging folks for that within the organization. But it's been great working with a team, and that takes the pressure off of you having to feel like you have to do everything. So sorry to take so long to answer your question, but that was a loaded question you asked me. So sorry about that.
No, that was a perfect answer because you answered my next question, which was, how do you run all these businesses successfully? And what we heard was you got to delegate, you got to hire the right people because that's what's best for the client, for the exam takers as well.
And it's always about relationships for me. I don't do anything that's transactional. And Alison, going through the classes, the ways sort of I operate, because I'm very upfront about ways that I've succeeded and ways that I've failed. And I learn more from the ways that I've failed in different, things, or not, it's not failing totally, but things that didn't go right, or things that you're like, I look back on it, if I would have done it differently. And you do that. I don't spend any time. I just learn from it. I don't dwell on the past. I'm like, all right, let's go ahead and do this better. I should have delegated, I think, sooner, 5 or 10 years before, but I didn't. I'm not going to beat myself up on it. But now it's allowed me to sort of really concentrate on the things that I really like. And it really is something, you end up being better when you sort of can concentrate on your strengths. If you can do that, you'll be happier, you'll be a better friend, I'll be a better spouse, a better father, a better son, I'll be a better everything if I'm doing that, better teammate for the management teams of the various firms. So that's something that's really, really important to me, is working on long-term relationships. It's not transactional. And for me, I want to know, are we going to work together for a long time? Sure, things can come up, and sure, you can separate. But I would argue a lot of times choosing your partners carefully. Remember my dad saying, choose your partners carefully. And I go, partners, you mean like if I have a spouse in the future? And he was like, well, yes, obviously that, yes, choose carefully. But anybody you do business with, even your friends, he used to tell me this when I was in middle school, choose your friends, your partners, your friends carefully. Are they people you would want to be around? Are they people you'd be proud to be part of? Not that they're doing such amazing things or they're so smart or whatever, but are they nice people? Are they good people? Are they kind? Do they have empathy, etc.? And he always said, choose your partners. And I immediately, it never was about just your spouse. It was about the people you work with. And no, it doesn't always work out. Of course it doesn't. But a lot of times it does. And it can work out in a long-term relationship as long as everyone's honest with one another and you communicate clearly, and hopefully it'll last for a long, long time.
Well, it's clear you've got a lot of passion around taking people through the CFP exam, running this business, running a financial planning practice. Tell us about how that passion developed as you learned more about this financial planning industry.
Where it all started, I was 17 years old and my father got killed in an automobile accident. And we had no idea how to handle any of it. That was one thing. And my mom was pretty hurt the whole time through my senior year. Back then, we didn't have any stocks and bonds or whatever. If anything, you had some Series E, but savings bonds. That's what Series E savings was. That's all you got. I mean, that's all any of us had. We didn't have any stocks and bonds and money or whatever. Didn't have any IRAs in 1985 when my dad died. There was nothing. They had a tiny bit in the bank, and that was less than $5,000. So it was one of those things. We did get some insurance money, but even then, didn't know how to deal with it, what to do with it, etc. So I realized, you know what? Regular people need help too. Then I went to college, came out, ended up working at a small hedge fund, and it wasn't really where my passion was. And I don't know that I was great at it. So I wanted to, become a certified financial planner. I wanted to work with folks. I had seen how the hedge fund world worked. And Wall Street is about Wall Street making money. They don't really care if you make money, as long as they make money. Having said that, Wall Street offers wondrous gifts to you if you know how to use them. So the RIA that I started was named and is named Main Street Financial Solutions, to basically say, I want to work with people not on Wall Street, and I want to bring them all the amazing, wondrous things of Wall Street, while at the same time protecting them from all the things and all the ways that they can take advantage of you. So for me, I realized working at this hedge fund, look, this is what I want to do. And then I went and I wasn't working. And my wife said, I said, this is what I'm going to do. I don't have a job now. This is what I'm going to do. And my wife said, you have 2 years. She goes, you have 2 years. And she said, I want to start a family. You want to start a family. I go, well, so do I. And she goes, well, I'm working. That's fine. But I don't need you to make a lot of money. I just need you to be doing something that most importantly, you enjoy. That's one thing. And number two, it has to make a little bit of money. It doesn't make a ton of money, a little bit of money. And after 2 years, if you think you're on that path, then let's go. However, because I always wanted to work for myself. She said, however, I know you don't want to work for anybody else. I know you don't want to have anybody pulling the strings and you want to be your own boss. That's great. But after 2 years, if you're floundering or you're not happy, etc., then you got to go get a job. And I got to tell you, that made all the difference in the world. Her trusting in me, her believing in me was amazing. And she was amazing at doing that. And sort of for me, I was like, wow, I might be able to do this. She actually believes in me. I was like, well, maybe I should believe in myself. And that really was helpful. And also I had friends around me that really believed in it. And I'd be like, at one time I said to my wife, I said, you actually believe in me more than I believe in yourself. And she goes, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And you know what? Your friend over here believes in you more than you do. And your friend over here believes in you more than you do. So start believing in yourself. And I was like, okay, yes, dear. And so that really, after a year and a half, it wasn't that I was making tons of money, but I knew. She goes, you're happy. I go, I am so happy. And that's with the education, doing financial planning on the side. And that really, the education side really took off. And then in 2007 and 8, I got together with a couple of my former students and we started working together on managing money, not just doing planning. And so that was 2007, 8. It really started in 8 going into 09. And so now we're where we are, so many years later, almost 2 decades later. So that's really what it was, is me just getting started. And that's the one thing people are like, well, I don't know what I want to do or whatever. I say we're dealing with people who've been in the business not a long time, the next gen, get her done. Like, I'm sorry, when you've got 3 kids and a mortgage payment and all that stuff, good luck, like switching out of the job that you don't like. The time to do it is the time that you don't have some big mortgage payment. Maybe you do, but your spouse is working, or that you have you have some savings or whatever. You don't have a lot of debt and you don't necessarily have kids yet. And you can go ahead. And if I would have failed miserably, worst case scenario, I would have gone to work for somebody else. That's what would have happened. And then I would have raised my family and all that. But at least I would have known that I went after it. That I said, hey, I didn't want to be 50 years old. I'm 58 years old now. I am old, but I am 58. I got aches and pains and stuff. Was it Mickey Mantle said, if I'd have known I'd get this old, I would have taken better care of myself. He said something like that. But understand here, back then when I was, my late 20s, early 30s, I was like, when I'm 50, I don't want to, because that's when I'll be old, is when I'm 50. So when I'm old, I don't want to look back and say, oh, I should have done that, or I could have done that. I just didn't want to look back. I wanted to say, if I failed, I left it all out on the field. I failed, but darn it, it's okay. Because I at least tried when I had the opportunity. I wanted to be able to do that. And I got fortunate. I love it how people are like, yes, all the success is totally due to me. No. Yes, I tried to work hard. You try to be prepared and do all those things. But man, you got to get lucky. You have to have people around you that support you. All of those things. Anytime anybody's successful because of themselves, I'm like, yeah. Had you been born 100 years ago, I'd be working in a steel mill in Pittsburgh 100 years ago. Let's just be clear. That's what I would be doing. So the fact that I was born in a time that we had the internet, that you actually had access to educate, the chances of me going to some Ivy League school in 1986 are 0 and 0 100 plus years ago. There's no way that me going to college 100 plus years ago is 0, basically 0. So I was at a time where they were higher education, people were allowing that. And then you had this sense of, hey, I can do these things. And then the internet came along and it was easier to communicate and it's easier to travel now. It's all those things. And I got to tell you, it's made all the difference in the world being in the time, being in America. Good luck starting a business in, I don't know, Sweden, which Sweden's beautiful, or Japan. It's fabulous. Never been to either, but I know people who are Swedish and Japanese, and it's fabulous. I don't know if you start this business there. I don't know if entrepreneurs really could have done that 25 years ago. But in America, it's entrepreneur centric. That's where people come from around the world and they've been doing it for 100+ years, hundreds of years. This is where they stake their claim because it doesn't matter about your class structure, whatever. You work hard, you're smart, you do the right things by people, and you know what? You actually can succeed. And so all those things I got really lucky on. And then right place, right time, all those things, work hard, have good values, treat people right, good word of mouth, and then things can work out. And sometimes they don't. So that's why just doing the right things don't always guarantee success.
You did touch on trusting your gut and trusting yourself, being confident in yourself. And that was a major theme throughout your education as well, is make sure that you don't have too much head trash going on while you're taking the exam to not be able to focus on the question that they're asking you. So I'd love for you to expand a little bit on your approach to taking the CFP exam and how you developed that approach to taking and studying for the exam.
First of all, that is a clinical term of Danko education, and it is head trash. It's the head trash. It's the stuff that's going to bring you trouble. I went through it. I worked at a hedge fund. I had investment knowledge. So back then, the exam was 2 days, 10 hours. So 4 hours the first day and then 6 hours the second day. Paper and pencil, so not on a computer. And so I knew bonds, which were 25 to 30 questions back then. I knew bonds cold. I knew investments cold. I don't even think I looked at it. I didn't know what an IRA was. I didn't know what 529s were. Now, in fairness, when I took it, Roth IRAs were 5 years old, 529s were 4 or 5 years old. So a lot of that stuff was new. I didn't know any of that stuff. So what I realized is I had to create a positive mindset. Now, this was a positive after I went through all the gloom and doom, I'm going to fail, whatever. And then I was like, wait a minute, get busy living or get busy dying. And that comes from Shawshank Redemption. And it's one of my favorite movies because I believe in life, it is about getting busy living or getting busy dying. You need to decide. And my dad always said, you're never a victim. So right now, it's raining a little outside, but there's no thunder and lightning, right? If I got struck by lightning right now, and I went upstairs, hopefully I'd go upstairs and see my dad would be like, that is your fault for sitting there doing the podcast at that time in that chair and getting struck by lightning. Because my dad said, you're never a victim. Because once you're a victim on anything, then you can be a victim for life. So his whole deal was never be a victim, always blame yourself. If you just blame yourself, then you're like, all right, I'm going to blame myself, I'm going to get over it and move forward. So passing the exam, that's one of our biggest things. You're not taking it, you're not sitting it. We had somebody in the Philadelphia Review 2 cycles ago who said, well, I'm taking the exam on this date. And I went, you know, I'm not going to talk to you when you say that word. He goes, what, taking? I go, yeah. He goes, I am taking it. I go, okay. And I walked away from him. This is live. And it was during a break. And he came up and he goes, you just walked away from me. I go, yeah, because you're taking the exam. I said, I don't talk to anybody who talks like that. I just don't. And he goes, I'm sitting for the exam. I go, again. And somebody else came. I said, do you have a question? And that guy was so pissed off at me. He goes, all right, I'm passing exam on this date. I go, now you're talking. Now tell me everything you need to know. And he walked away and he was kind of mad at me. He passed the exam and called me and he goes, now I get it. You know, it's the Ted Lasso here because I'm doing a call after this because the exam cycle starts tomorrow. But you got to believe in yourself. And that's why you're passing the exam. So I think that's sort of the ethos of how I did it. Also then the material, keeping it tight, not wasting your time on stuff that gets overly confused. For me, I live my life by, it's a line in the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, 2 of my favorite actors. But Denzel Washington, he was a lawyer, and he would say to the witness, explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. And I have to tell you, that's the other thing. These are complex ideas, and the CFP exam is a difficult exam. We try at Danko Education to get it down into those things that we can teach it like a 6-year-old can understand. Like maybe a 6-year-old can't pass the exam, but they can at least understand the concept. And that's why we use stories to sort of get them to realize, all right, here's the things that we're actually trying to do. All right, now I got that story. Now I can apply it. It's not just memorizing concepts, it's applying them. And when you can give a definition for a Roth IRA, for example, my daughter is newish in the business. So she doesn't work with me. She works at another firm. She's really happy. And she's getting her training there. It's great. She would give me a definition of, say, a Roth IRA. But she goes, Dad, you were right. When I explained it to like the third client, then I knew it. Then I knew it. So if you have a story, if you can apply it. So that's really what we try and do to get people through. Focus on what you need to know, and focus on the things that will help you become a better advisor. And so if you can do all those things, we're going to help you through the exam and help you pass the exam.
Well, it's clear that getting in a good mental space is so important to your process. So I want to dive in a little bit deeper. How else do you help the exam takers psychologically prepare for this test?
I share with them my failures. I say, this is a question. This is how I would answer this question. I tell them flat out, I am awesome at answering exam type questions in any type of exam the way I want to answer them. Notice it's not the question they asked. Oh, no, no, no. Because I go too quickly and I answer the question I want to answer. Dopey boy Brett wants to answer. Bucket boy Brett wants to answer. And it's wrong. And you go, but you understand the concept. Doesn't matter. I got the question wrong. So I think it's slowing it down. It's showing them that I'm an instructor, but I also I'm human and I screw up. And I've had a couple people throughout the years. It's only been 3 people who said, one of the things that I don't like about you is that you basically say this question, you might miss it because you would answer it this way. I want from my instructor, my teacher, professor to know everything perfectly. And I was like, are you crazy? You've never had an instructor or professor that knew everything 100%. It doesn't exist because no one's perfect. And so for me, I want to share with them, hey, here's ways that I have problems. Oh, and by the way, you as a student, you'll look at the way I did and go, well, I don't have problems answering it that way. But on this question that Brett doesn't have an issue with, I have an issue with. So it's really being cognizant of what are they asking? What do I need to get it down to? How do I eliminate answers and then go with what I know? And also, you don't get upset over one question. I have so many people that have to get A's on everything. They've always gotten A's. Guess what? The average GPA now is I believe, what my alma mater, this is as of 3 years ago, it was 3.62. When I was an undergrad, it was 2.9. So you're telling me that all these kids from Penn are that much smarter? Hells no. They ain't smarter. They ain't dumber, but they ain't smarter than we were. It's just that they give out A's like candy. Now, some people actually earn it. Others actually don't necessarily earn it. And so my thing is that you're not going to get an A on this thing. Our practice exams, we make them wicked hard, as they would say in Boston, wicked hard. And people are like, I'm going to score between a 55 and a 70, and that's good. That's failing. I go, not to me, it's not. It ain't failing in our program. And one of the things we try and do is make it so that you practice really hard. We make it real, those exams and cases towards the end of our last 8 to 10 days before you pass your exam. We make those questions so darn hard that when you go into the exam, you're like, this isn't bad. That jerk Brett had me answering nonsensical questions. There's questions in there, people are like, I don't understand this question. And I go, neither do I. I threw it in there because when you take the CFP exam, you're going to get 1 or 2 questions where you're going to be like, I don't even know what the heck you're talking about. And if you don't think that's true, talk to anybody who's passed the CFP exam and they'll be like, I don't even know what the hell they were talking about. So I want you to get upset at me, not during the exam. So at the exam, everything is geared toward you are peaking at tournament time. We also deal with the psychological side. I have been talking about the psychological side forever. Then we had a woman named Amy Lease come through. She's also an advisor at our firm at Main Street, which is awesome. She came to me and she goes, look, I took all your fast track educational classes because we do the educational classes. We do them for 3.5 days a month, but we also do executive track, which is at night. So essentially 2 or 3 days a night for a certain number of weeks, and that equals a class as well. So we do that as well. And she went through the fast track and the review, and she said, you know, Brett, you talk so much about the psychological side. There's only one problem with that. And I go, what? She goes, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, it's good. Like, you do know what you're talking about to people who don't know, but there's so much more you could be offering. And she goes, I go, well, how do you know? And she goes, because I have a PhD in educational psychology. And she goes, so I think maybe I said, you could help the students. So she actually will tutor some students on that if they have ADHD or just stress on taking the exam or take 2 exams too fast or too slow or study skills. She does that. Her pass rate is higher than the national pass rate. Do you know how awesome that is? These are people who have not been successful for 3, 4 exams and then they pass on their 4th or 5th time. Like, it's amazing. And she does 3 sessions for everybody, talking about study skills, talking about being positive, not worrying about your test scores too much, worrying about concepts and staying comfortable with that. So Amy's been amazing for that. But it's all in what we can do to keep making the program better. It's not where I want it to be. There's certain things I want, and we're working on those in the next year or so. We're going to accomplish those goals. And then I'm going to say there's other holes here. Because there's always holes. But believe me, it all goes back to success breeds complacency. Complacency breeds failure. Only the paranoid survive. So my brother, who I work with, and another one of our colleagues, is they always laugh. They're like, Brett, you never think things are good. You're always like, where's the hole? Where's the hole? How do we get better? How do we get better? So just so you know, we're the ones who are going to tell you things are going okay. Because you're going to find the holes, because that's all you do. Now, that's a good side in business. You know where it's not good? In regular life. Because then you get too picky. And that's the one thing my wife going through a lot of pain and our family going through pain, etc. So after this, I have a CFP call, meeting with some folks, and then I'm going to be with my daughter tonight. We're going to go out. Well, we're going to have many drinks is what we're going to have. And many drinks and each take an Uber home. That's what's going to happen to celebrate, her mom. And been talking about with my son. He's over in Dublin. So we're going to call him. And he goes, you're going to call me? It's going to be the middle of the night. And we said, yup, because we're going to be drunk calling you at 4 or 5 in the morning, which is what we're probably going to do. And we're going to celebrate, their mom. And that's going to be fun. But there is something, about, forcing yourself to also realize what's important. And that's something Amy Lease was helpful with. What is your why? Why are you doing this? Why do you work so hard? Why is it? Is it for stuff to keep up with your neighbors or to show other people? What's the old Americans are great at buying things they don't need to impress people they don't like. That was a great saying. I did not make it up, but that is a wonderful saying. And I got to tell you, sometimes you can get caught into that. And I will tell you, having my wife go through what she's gone through, having people, I have very special people around me now that I'm very, very close to and care of and love very much. I got to tell you, those folks, it's not about, they could care less whether you've got stuff or you have a lot of CFPs or no CFPs. They care about you as a person. And that is something I want everyone to realize, especially the next gen, realize that it's about who you are as a person. And that is one thing, being curious, being empathetic, those types of things. Everybody's like, what makes a great financial advisor? Being able to do investments? No, you're just going to pick other people's investments. That's what you're going to do. You're going to do asset allocation, asset location. You're going to do those things. It's about having empathy. It's about understanding where their pain points are and how to help them realize their short, mid, and long-term goals. Everybody makes this way too complicated. You focus on goals, 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 and goals. And then after that, if it's something like retirement, it's cash flow. How are we going to get the cash flow for that? Now, what does that involve? All types of how things are invested, asset allocation, asset location, how you're going to bring monies out of 401k plans. How do you take Social Security? When do you work? When do you work part-time? All that stuff. All of that's unbelievably, yes, can get complicated. but it literally boils down to goals, 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 and then cash flow and how you're going to actually fund those goals. And if you do that and you keep it simple, I actually think you're going to be incredibly successful, because everybody tries to junk it up. Everybody, I got an angle here. Angle? How about just that is your angle? Because that's a pretty damn good angle. And a lot of people don't do it. And if you focus on that, they'll get it. And also about being a good person. I'm very humbled by this. But I have a dear friend who I knew, obviously was in college, knew him well. And he came into some money. And it was kind of life-changing, millions of dollars, life-changing money. And he called me and he goes, hey, I just want you to know, I just quit my job. And he goes, I'll find another job at some point, but I quit this job because I didn't really like it. I basically, because of a business that I sold, there was sort of a side hustle, but I sold it. I have millions of dollars after taxes, and I want you to manage it. And I was like, look, we all know lots of people. You live in, New York City. You know lots and lots of financial advisors, all that. He said, Brett, I don't want any financial advice, any financial advisor. I want you. And I said, but I don't even manage assets. So I'm going to do a plan with you and then somebody else will manage it. He said, Brett, I just want to be working with your firm. And I was like, wow, that's really nice. And he goes, and I'm coming down. So he came down the next day with his spouse, and my wife was there. It's a couple of years ago, right before she died. And so they came down, and he said, you've been the same person the whole way through. He goes, we've been friends for almost 40 years, 35, 37 years. He said, you've been the same person the whole way through. He said, and I go, look, I did some dumb stuff he goes, yeah, but it was never mean. You always were the one to volunteer. You always worked really hard. You always took things seriously. You always had empathy. You always did these things. You were always an officer. And whatever you did, you volunteered and you didn't look for stuff. He said, that's who I want to be with, because I know that you'll do right. No, you're not a hedge fund. I'm not going to make 40% a year. I don't want that. What I want is to make sure this is money that should last me the rest of my life. I'll work, my wife will work, but we don't have to worry about it now, because you're going to allow this to grow and it's going to help my children and my grandchildren. And I was really humbled by that. And that's something that I was talking to a group of people who were youngish in the business. If you're a screw up your whole life, you can't just go back to your friends and be like, hey, now I'm really serious financial advisor. They're going to look at you like, no, you were a jerk. You did dumb stuff. You were mean to people. You were this, you were that. You were selfish. I don't know that I want to work with you. Now, they might still, but I got to tell you, that's it. And also, that reputation, that's word of mouth, because then he says, yeah, I know you're working with some advisor. Here's who you want to work with. You want to work with my friend's firm, because this guy's rock solid. He does what's right. And oh, by the way, he did what was right when he was 18 and 19 and 20 and 21. When, even though sometimes he was a little bit of a goofball, and he still is, he's still going to do right for you, and things are going to be right for you in the long run. He's going to satisfy your goals. And that is something I would urge. Your behavior now and throughout your life and in your past is going to pay dividends or not in the future. So I think most of the people who are in this business, pretty serious people, good people, hardworking people, curious, did the right thing. That's going to help you. And it's going to help you, maybe not necessarily now so much, but 10, 20 years from now. I had another person came aboard last year, and they were older. And they said, Brett, I knew you when you were a kid. You were 12 years old. Nobody worked harder than you. You had 2 jobs at the country club. Well, when I was 14, I had 2 jobs. But when you were 14, you had 2 jobs. You always worked. And I want us to, our money, but also our children's money, we're coming to you, because you just always worked hard. You always did what was right. You were always respectful. And they were like, call us by our first names. And I said, yes, I will, Mrs. So-and-so. And they said, you've always done that. Because I always did. I'm never going to call you by your first name. You can tell me 50 times, I'm still going to call you Mr. Mrs. because that's how I knew you. And also it's out of respect. And so it's one of those things that I think that stuff matters. And I didn't think it mattered that much. I was just doing kind of what my parents taught me, because I was lucky that I had parents and I had people around me that said, hey, that was selfish of you. Now go back and apologize. Why did you do that? And I learned from it. And it didn't mean that I didn't make mistakes. I still make them. But it's like you learn, and then these people point it out, and they do it out of love and respect, not being a jerk. They're like, we want you to get better. So I don't even think you realize the way you didn't handle that. Just happened to me with a good friend about 2 months ago. They were like, you were kind of flippant the way you answered that. I knew how you were saying it. I knew what you meant. I don't think they know you as well. And this is a friend, but not that deep of a friend. And I immediately called that person. They were like, well, I kind of took it that way, but then I was kind of like, he was a little flip about it. But then I kind of know the way you are, and I wasn't sure. Thank you for clearing it up. I just owned it. And I said, I didn't mean to be flippant. I just was making a joke, kind of a thing. And I shouldn't have made that joke. And I shouldn't have made it because you didn't know me that well. So sorry to be long-winded, but this stuff I'm really passionate about, especially for that next gen advisor. Really, really matters.
I completely agree. And I think that the CFP offers such a great foundation of knowledge for advisors as they continue on in their career. But there's so much involved in being a financial planner that extends beyond what you can learn in a CFP education course. And you touched on that, on being a good person, being empathetic to client situations. And I wanted to pick your brain on how you believe younger advisors, other than just hopefully innately being good people, but how can you develop the skill sets necessary to be a successful advisor outside of the CFP technical knowledge?
I just think be curious. That's the biggest thing. I'm curious about everything. I love that Google exists or search engines exist. I'm just going along and be like, I wonder about that. And it's stuff that isn't important. It just isn't. But for me, it is. I'm just curious. I'm curious about everything. So when I travel, I don't talk to anybody because I talk all the time. And I got to tell you, when I travel, I don't speak to anybody. Now, if you speak to me in an Uber or you sit next to me in a plane and you talk to me, I'm going to find out what you do, and then I'm going to mine you for information. So I talked to a dentist. I'm like, what's hot in dentistry? What's this? What's that? And the poor guy was like, why did I even say hi to this guy? Well, you talk to me first. So I do think that's it. The other thing is to realize that it can all go downhill. So your business can go downhill pretty quickly. I mean, it's you can build your reputation over a lifetime, and within a nanosecond, it can be gone. And so I think that's something that really is important. And I've always kept that in mind. I'm actually going to show something up here. I'm going to just move my camera, and I don't know if you can see it, but this is my wall of shame. So I have a stock certificate from Enron. I have a Madoff shares, a Madoff confirm, and a Madoff statement. Arthur Andersen mug, Silicon Valley Bank. I have Inc. magazine, the next Steve Jobs, and that was Theranos. That obviously she's in jail regarding it. So I have a Bear Stearns golf balls. The reason why I bring that up, you're like, wait a minute, all those things failed. Yeah. Every day I walk in here, I always go to the office if I can, if I'm in town. I always walk past it because that's what happens when you don't get serious. I have a Lehman Brothers teddy bear that they used to give out. My point is that's another thing. It's how I develop that. I'm trying to do well here, but you know what? One stupid thing can blow it all up. And that's what's happened with a lot of amazing businesses out there. And trust me, none of my businesses are anywhere near how these businesses were valued and things like that. All the people who ran them have lots more money than me and all that, but they all ended up in the gutter. They ended up in the gutter because they didn't keep an eye on the ball. And sometimes you get a car comes out of nowhere and just runs you over. Let me be clear. That happens. But I'm always scanning. It's like, what can go wrong? How do we get better? How do we do that? And like I said, I'm never there. Somebody said, are you where you want to be as a financial planner? I said, I'll never be. You want to get better. And I use it because I use sports analogies sometimes too much. But they asked Michael Jordan, like, are you as good as you want to be? And he goes, of course not. They asked Steph Curry, you're the greatest shooter of all time. And he's like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Yeah, but you have the highest percentage, the most threes for blah, 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 over a certain number, all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, but I still missed 4 out of 8. So I was at 50%. I need to do better. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. And I do think that it's like, how do you get better? It's one of the reasons why I love to teach, because it reinforces it. And that's something that's important. Now, I'm not good at being my own financial advisor. So one of the things that I have a financial advisor at our firm who's amazing, and he goes ahead and for planning purposes, as well as money stuff, but it's really helpful. I can run ideas. I have another person that I run ideas off of who's amazing as well. I'm too close to it. I'm too emotional. So for me, I am fabulous at talking to one of you about, oh, here's how you should asset allocate and asset location, and here are your goals. I'm great at that. When it comes to me, I'm like, put it all on red, baby. Let's go. That's the way I am. So I needed somebody to be like, hey, if you still want to do that, that's great, but let's just say what this is. So, and I use the example of my wife's cancer came back and they'd given her 2 to 3 years to live. She ended up living 7.5 years. But after 4 years, they said it's coming back. It's right as COVID hit. And she's probably not going to make it for the end of the year, till the end of the year. Now, she made it another 3.5 years, but they said that's not going to happen. So I just said, we're buying a beach house and we're buying a house on the ocean. So I took out a mortgage, a low mortgage, which was good, low interest rate. But I'm going to be paying mortgage pay until I'm 83 years old or 82 years old. So let me just be clear. I'm going to pay it for a long time. But I went ahead and I said, this is, what we're going to do. And I said to my advisors, to both of them that I was talking to, I was like, so this is a good investment, whatever. And they go, time out, dude. You're doing this purely for emotional purposes. Let's just be clear. This is not what you should be doing with your excess cash, liquidating, I didn't liquidate retirement stuff, but liquidating your other investments, paying tax on some of them, and then borrowing a bunch of money for an oceanfront house. Like, this is emotional. Now, could it work out in the end? Yes. It's an asset, etc. But let's just be clear here. And I was like, thank you for sharing that. So I do think that's important for those advisors out there. Have other people around you can run ideas off. And here's the other thing. It allows you to see how other people work their process. And that is something that's really, really helpful, because I've learned from this person, I'm like, wow, I kind of do it my way. I thought my way was the right way. I'm going to take 70% of mine and 30% of his, and then I'll think it's the right way. Or 70% of his and 30% of mine. And that's the thing. You're always just trying to get better, and you're a sponge, and you're just learning. Even in the business, as long as I've been in, always learning.
No, you crushed it. I was just thinking this podcast episode probably didn't go how I expected it to go, but there were moments where I laughed, moments where I was like, that's a good point. Or, man, I needed to hear that. And, I'm 7 years in the industry, and you still had some really great nuggets in that one. So thank you. Thank you for showing up authentically, sharing about your story. We really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you. I'm honored that you would have me. I'm glad Alison got through this and unscathed and made it through. So I love it. And we will help you pass the exam. Anybody out there for the educational classes, as well as even if you take education through another firm, and then our review class. We do virtual and live. And I'm just telling you, our focus is getting people through the darn test. And I'm not saying we're perfect for everybody, and we don't have a perfect pass rate, but we do pretty darn well. And I think we have a lot of people come through, and they learn a lot about how to become better advisors, and they pass the exam, and that's what matters. And we're all on this journey together. And also, it's exciting. It's exciting to have, you realize we don't have enough advisors. Like, I don't think people even understand that. The demand is there. I said to my daughters, we were talking to her guidance counselor one time, and I was like, I'm so sick of hearing about STEM, the computer crap and all that. Look, if you're into that, great. In no other industry have so many average and below average people made so much money as in the finance industry. Let me be clear on that. Now, that's a joke, but it's also true. Number two, which is more important than that, is that you can really help people. And you could say, you know what, I just want to work on the planning side. No, I don't want to. I just want to work on the investment side. I just want to work on the outwards client side. I just want to work on the marketing side. I just want to work on the admin side. I just want to work on the compliance side. There are so many areas that you can find your happy place. And that's what's so awesome about this industry. And it keeps growing and growing and growing. And nobody knows about it. They all think they have to be math savants or something to pick investments. I don't pick any. I go to smart people, and they're the ones that pick the investments or their passive funds or whatever. But they go ahead and do it. And I'm like, okay, your funds are really good. They've outperformed. Okay, we're going to use those funds for this piece of the equity side, or this piece of the fixed income side, or the alternative investment side. And that's something that's so important. And I'd love to bring up one other point, but I didn't get the question that I always get. They said, you've been in this business a long time. How is AI going to affect you? If you do the right things. Now, if you do asset allocation, that's all you do, and you do rebalancing, yep, you're out of a job. You're out. Your clients are going to, because they'll get it a hell of a lot cheaper through AI. Hell, I can do it a hell of a lot cheaper at any online trading platform, okay? I can just do that. A computer can do it for 35 basis points, all right? However, if you actually really have deep relationships with your clients, if you're there to hold their hand when actual bad things are happening out there, and you say, look, remember, we planned for this. COVID hit. You know what we're going to do? We're not going to do anything with your equities. I know it's down 34%. You know why it's down 34%? Because our economy just got rocked. However, since we did good planning, all your equities are for 10, 15, 20, 30 years in the future. Well, this isn't going to last that long, so you're going to be fine because we did that planning. We don't have it all in one bucket or all in one basket. We did that, and I'm going to hold your hand. And a large firm, mutual fund company, they said the people that did it on their own, that were the people who were the do-it-yourselfers at their firm, because they had that mechanism you could do, those people, about a third of them sold equities at the lows. Whereas the folks that actually worked with an advisor, either at that firm or through other firms, because they're a custodian, it was less than 3%, I think, or something like that, sold equities at the lows. So that alpha that you add is unbelievably important. And right now, AI can't do it. Now, will it be able to at some point? It might. The Wall Street Journal just had this great article. There's an MIT professor who basically said, I tried to be a financial advisor with AI. This is about 3-4 weeks ago. And AI, basically a serial killer. And the reason why is it basically, think about it. If I type in, I'm concerned about the markets, AI is trained to focus on that. So you're going to read every article that says you should put everything in cash. That's what they're going to do because it hasn't figured out how to think yet. It doesn't have empathy. It can't sit there and say, you know what, you should have equities, but guess what? You don't want to have equities. You don't want to have more than 30%. That's okay. You need to be able to sleep at night. All we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, you have to work an extra 3 years. Do that, and you still can accomplish all your goals. AI can't do that yet. AI just says you're a loser. You're a loser because why? Because you're not putting 60, 70% in equities. And here's all the articles that are going to make you feel horrible about yourself because you're a weenie and only put in 30%. I'm not making this up. That's what AI does. That's what all that machine learning does. It basically gives you what you want to hear. So as an advisor, especially a young advisor, this is hard for people to get, is that they don't want to tell clients what they need to hear. Tell them. Because they secretly know when you're like, yeah, you can't retire, and here's why. But if you just work these 4 more years or 5 more years, you can get there. And they're like, yeah, I kind of knew that. I was just hoping you'd tell me I'm okay. Well, you're not. Or you can tell them they are okay. And then you can show them mathematically, hey, looking at how things have gone over the last 100, 125 years with asset classes, you're good to retire now. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. Those are the things that AI can't do. They can't be that trusted advisor. Not yet anyway. Now, will it get there? It might. Just saw another thing, a major brokerage firm just said, AI is set for a big leap. It's going to take over the world. And it might. It might. Will AI help you? I love note-taking for AI. If your firm allows it, I love it. Now, it still screws up stuff, so you got to read through it. Saves people at our firm lots of time for that. For scheduling things or getting information, AI is fabulous. So I believe it can help us. That technology can help us, even allow us to serve more clients than we ever could before. And I am so excited that this younger generation, because like I said earlier, we need more advisors. And also these advisors actually get it. And I'm going to say this, and sorry, Mike, a lot more women are entering the field than ever have before, and I love it. A lot more people from men and women from different walks of life, and I love it. And that's not some talking point. It matters because there are so many groups out there. People are like, hey, I don't really feel comfortable, working with some 58-year-old guy like me, but I feel comfortable working with a 30-year-old woman because I am a 30-year-old woman. or I feel comfortable working with somebody who's divorced. I feel comfortable because the financial advisor specializes in divorce cases. Oh, and by the way, they're divorced, or they're a single mom, or they're a single dad, or whatever. I love that. Or they understand my culture. They understand my religion. They understand that stuff. I love that. We're getting more and more, and now it's easier to find those people on the internet. So technology is going to help us. It may put us out of business, but quite frankly, if we're out of business, I'm just going to be honest with you. If they learn how to think, everybody's out of business. We just are. So we're going to be fine. We're going to be one of the last ones. And then if we really don't need anybody, it's going to be the Terminator movies, because they're just going to eliminate us. They're going to be like, enough's enough. That's 100, 200 years out. But I do think that'll happen. But I think technology, utilize it to your advantage. And the younger generation, the people newish in the business, they get technology, they're comfortable. I'm an old man. I can barely work my darn phone, okay? Yet you're out there like, oh, let's use this app. Let's use this. You just do it, the younger generation. And I love it. And that's exciting. So you have the world ahead of you. You have a job for life. And so go after it and figure it out and create your own work-life balance, etc. Hopefully you'll do it better than I did. You won't need somebody actually getting sick that you realize, wait a minute, I got to change this up. And I started to, as you get older, you start to realize as your kids get older, wait a minute, I need to spend a little more time. But man, hopefully you'll realize it younger. So, and the younger generation also values experiences, which I love. So what happens is in my life, if I 30 years ago, I'm 28 years old, say 28-year-old Brett, my boss is say he's a jerk. If I went home and talked to anybody who was older or whatever, they'd have been like, you suck it up. You're going to learn from this, blah, 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 blah. You know what the 28-year-olds do now when their boss is a jerk? Not just challenge them, but I mean a jerk. They tell them to go to hell. Then they go to Costa Rica for 2 weeks to recover. And sometimes their parents pay for it. That's what happens. Oh, and by the way, then they come back and get a new job that suits them better. And I love that it's about experiences. It's not about stuff as much. It's about those experiences. I really think that's important. And so if you keep doing that, relationships, understanding that, experiences, what do people want? Man, that's what they want. They want somebody who can take their hopes and dreams and make them come true on a financial sense.
Mic drop moment right there. Thank you so much. I was also thinking we should have had a movie reference counter. I think maybe 5 or 6 is what we were at. That was pretty good.
Well, that's all I have to say about that from Forrest Gump. So there you go. You can say that. But folks, for the next gen out there, work hard. Surround yourself with people who love you, who support you, and the people you have negative energy. It's the other thing. Get them out of your life. Because if you want to focus on have a successful practice and a successful life and have work-life balance, you don't need the negative people. You don't need them. Get them out of your life.